So two things that have our interest we want to bring in this hour, as we've been promising all morning. Fox Weather hurricane specialist Bryan Norcross. 94L, as we continue to watch, it looks as if by satellite that persistent convection that's been continuing this morning. Wondering if there is any sort of organization that you've been seeing.
Really not, and it's because of the mountains there. It's still very close to the very tall mountains in the Dominican Republic and Haiti and even in Cuba as well. So that's disrupting its effort to get a circulation going, but it is a robust disturbance. So there is every expectation that it is going to survive this interaction with those tall mountains and move into the Bahamas, where it won't be disrupted. Its circulation won't be disrupted. I'm going to show you that disruption here in a second. And we have that spectacularly intensifying Humberto. This is going to be one of those storms that is just going to really kick off based on everything we know. The atmosphere looks extremely conducive ahead, and the water underneath of it is very, very warm. So no reason to think that that's not going to blow up and be a very strong storm. Category 4 could push into strong Category 4 territory even. But then we have the uncertainties here, and one of them involves Humberto, and the question is, how fast does it move up here? A little bit of difference and a little bit of change in what part of the cone it goes in is going to affect what is likely to be Imelda over here. As these two storms, if they come too close, then one is going to affect the other. And if this one gets to be a super strong storm, it's going to have more oomph than Imelda, because that's not expected to get super strong, although it is forecast by most computer forecasts to turn into a hurricane. All right, so I want to jump all the way ahead to Monday, and this is actually midday-ish on Monday, because here are the factors that we're going to be looking at. First of all, we have high pressure out of, we'll go kind of right to left here. High pressure out of the Atlantic driving like this. So that's what's driving the hurricane to the north. But exactly how strong is that high? So how far west is it going to push it before it goes around? The exact orientation there is obviously not knowable, and so that's one of the uncertainties. Now, if you look at where we have the hurricane, it's forecast to be a Category 4 on Monday. You notice that the model, this is the European model, has it a little bit farther south. A little bit slower or faster makes a lot of difference here. So the European, because it's a little slower, keeps the distance between these two storms a little farther apart, and so the influence is less. This is going to be a knife's edge kind of thing, I think, when we get to the first part of next week. Then there's where the model has the, it would be Imelda, it would be probably Hurricane Imelda by Monday, or at least near Hurricane Imelda approaching the southeast coast. Then we have this little low up in here, which is trying to scoop Imelda inland. So it's trying to do that, but it's weakening. And then we have a strong high pressure system to the north. So what's going to happen here? If the hurricane gets up here and starts exerting force like this, that could actually make Imelda make a loop, maybe go on out to sea, follow Humberto out to sea, and maybe stall in some kind of loop. So in any case, it looks like that this may slow down in this area. Exactly what happens when it slows down, whether it loops and comes back here, whether it just slows down and then proceeds there, because this actually does control in the end, that's all possibilities at this point. So we have confidence until about Monday when it's in this area. Also, how fast does it move? Maybe it's down here a little more on Monday, which affects, again, the distance between these two. So we have pretty much confidence that it's going to move north through the weekend, and then we get into the first part of next week when our confidence just goes down significantly, because we have this interaction issue between all three of these systems, and which one is going to dominate the steering is not clear at this point. All right, let's look at Humberto real quickly, and there you see what Stephen and Marissa were talking about. Looks like a strengthening hurricane as it is. 90 miles an hour right now is the estimate. Pressure going down. All indications are this is is going to get big and strong, especially around Bermuda. So as it makes the turn up here, and what we get up here are the upper level winds, and that has the effect of expanding the storm. As the storms move to the north, they expand, and those upper level winds encourage that expansion. So Bermuda, this is not the same as we just had with Gabrielle. This is going to be a bigger hurricane. So just bear that in mind. Everybody in Bermuda, stay on the watch for what's happening with this. Okay, here's our invest, and here's what Stephen was talking about. We have thunderstorms here, thunderstorms up in here. So lots of thunderstorms with this, and we can see that the envelope is actually growing with this system. So this is a robust disturbance, no question about it. Hurricane Center estimating 30-mile-an-hour winds, and they have a 90% chance this is going to develop into a tropical depression or tropical storm Imelda. When we look at the close-up here and look at the analysis, look at the flow coming in here, and then you see it kind of, it's thinner in here. That's because there are big mountains right there blocking it. And you see how it kind of kinks up here, kind of funny? That's because the flow over Hispaniola is not like it is over the ocean. So that's a disrupting effect from having it organized. But you notice it has a very sharp kink in the wind, so it's trying to develop right there. It's got to get a little farther up and away from those tall mountains, even though there are some mountains here in Cuba, but when it gets farther away, then we think this will develop into a depression probably over the Bahamas, maybe tomorrow, and it might take till Sunday, but more likely tomorrow, I think. 90% chance. They have a big development area showing the uncertainty of when it just gets to a depression, but the odds favor it being down in here somewhere over the Bahamas in the next couple days to become a depression, and then pretty quickly, I think, that it'll become Tropical Storm Imelda because the weather pattern there looks conducive. All right, so let's look at this, and the moisture is going to be an important factor in terms of how people feel the storm. There obviously is our hurricane. Here is our disturbance. All right, here we are today. Now let's go forward in time, and you see that it doesn't move a whole lot, but it is pulling away from these tallest mountains down here. There's the moisture. It's not quite wrapped around. Dry air in here. Notice there's this front kind of situation that's over Florida causing rain. And here's our intensifying hurricane, Category 3. So that's tomorrow. So not a lot going on by tomorrow. Now we get up to Sunday, and now you can see that there's a line here because there is a front associated with that low that's up in here, and so that and the moisture banging up against it, that's going to make a lot of moisture over the coast there in advance of this storm. Category 4 out here. By Sunday, I think we probably have a tropical depression or a tropical storm. Could affect the northwestern Bahamas as a tropical storm. No indication. I know everybody in the northwestern Bahamas is very, very conscious of Hurricane Dorian. Obviously, there's no indication that this is a Dorian situation to be developing tropical storm and eventually a hurricane. How about the southeast coast? It could be disruptive in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach metropolitan area, depending on exactly where it is and how strong it gets. So Sunday would be the day that it might not be at all nice there, squally, gusty weather. No threat of a direct hurricane hit or something like that, though. Okay, now moving north, Monday, here was the day I talked about before. So where is the hurricane? And how far north is this? So the hurricane is going to have a flow like this and want to hold this back. So that's the question. How much effect do those two? If the hurricane's a little bit over here, it can just be that much difference to change completely what happens with the disturbance. All right, then we get to Tuesday, and here you see on Tuesday, they're reasonably close, but a number of the models hold it back here on Tuesday. A number of the models, you can see that the European has the hurricane here. Some of the models have it more here, closer, and then that's when we get this possibility of some kind of a twist or a pull out to sea, or this is where we have this fork in the road Monday into Tuesday. But I want you to notice the moisture here, unfortunately, over the mountains. So we're having a flow, tropical moisture coming in, hitting the mountains. So all up and down the Appalachians there, across the Carolinas, some potential for significant rain. And I know you folks have a lot of experience with significant rain in the mountains and just in the hills, just above the Piedmont. So everybody just be aware this is a possibility for the first of next week. So here's our tropical threat graphic. I want you to notice where the high possibility of having the storm track. This is nothing about the intensity. This is just about the where it'll go. So high confidence that the hurricane is going there somewhere, but if it goes there, that's a big difference than if it goes there in terms of how it affects the potential Imelda. And there's a high confidence that this is going north. See, this is through Tuesday. High confidence through about Monday that this is going north. And then notice the confidence gets a lot lower here, and we have some possibility of this kind of track here that Stephen was talking about earlier. So this is where we have the big question marks Monday into Tuesday. I hope that once this thing gets here over the southern Bahamas and starts to develop, that we get more consistent answers out of the models as opposed to this fork in the road. And just because it forks this way doesn't mean it can't come back, because remember, high pressure to the north is going to want to push it back if it kind of stalls in that area. So we have a number of questions there. But so we go from high confidence to very low confidence first part of next week. Stephen Rizzo?
Yeah, and Brian, is it fair to say that yesterday as we were watching, it seemed more clear that maybe we would be dealing with a landfalling storm? And I don't want to just get caught up in landfall, because as you had shown, the atmospheric moisture getting pulled into the mountains is going to be significant. But is it safe to say that this morning, given the runs that we've seen over the past 24 hours, a little less confidence that maybe we could have a landfall?
Well, the models have gone back and forth between making the landfall more likely, and then yesterday afternoon they made the turn more likely, but kept the landfall possibility. And now it's kind of gone back to, I don't know, I think there's a little higher odds now of some kind of version of landfall, but including going up to the coast and sitting there while it has these conflicting forces on it, and then making some kind of a loop and making landfall somewhere else, or just brushing the coast and going out to sea. So a lot of possibilities presented in there, but those odds go back and forth, because it really is a fork in the road, kind of a knife's edge kind of thing, and exactly which system has the most influence is just impossible to tell with a system that hasn't even developed yet. Especially, we always say, if the system is disorganized or just developing or slow moving or involved with mountains, then the forecasts are subject to high errors and are likely to change. So we have all those things, right? Checks every box.
No doubt.
At this point.
Well, it's a head scratcher. I mean, there's so many things in the balance here when it comes to forecasting it. Here's what I like to do, though, Brian, for my own mental sanity. I like to cross things off the list that I can push aside and focus on the things that matter. We talked about South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. There's really nothing showing that this thing would turn west, right, along the Florida coastline. Do you think we can rule out direct impact from this system, aside from fringe effects, for perhaps the eastern coast of Florida and maybe southeast Georgia?
Yeah, well, the fringe effects can be disruptive, though. You know, I mean, nobody should be planning to go boating or take the boat to Bimini or anything like that on a Sunday. And this may be a situation where it gets windy enough that people should take the furniture off the balconies and high rises and things like that. But in terms of causing lasting problems, we would not. No, the odds of that are so low that are not worth talking about. And Georgia I wouldn't put those odds quite so low in Georgia, but the threat does seem to be more South Carolina, North Carolina, maybe even East Virginia, depending on exactly how that thing would loop, because it would likely loop around this way if it were to do some kind of a, funny stall and loop in place.
Yeah, I hate any sort of slow-moving system this time of year. When it's so close to the Gulf Stream, you just hate to see that as a possibility, but I think it's something to factor in.
Right.
And all the rain. I mean, we always talk about, Brian, you as well. The emphasis of this isn't just a coastal issue. We have to pay attention to all that moisture heading inland, and that'll be the story over the next several days.
Right.
As always, appreciate you, Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Bryan Norcross, with us in studio.